Hey guys, today I am reviewing the RF 24mm 1.4 and I'm in Iceland at an absolute bucket list location of mine, Vestrahorn. We'll talk about the lens's strengths and weaknesses and why it's one of my favourite lenses right now for portraits, for travel, for video and for adventure photography on RF mount. So we came here to Vestrahorn for sunset the night before and was met with this just heavy snow and zero visibility with no mountains in sight at all. And this really was the shot that I came for. So that means I had to put all of my hopes on sunrise the next morning. And as we started our drive up and I could see that glow on the horizon, I started to feel like we might be getting lucky. And we did get lucky because the conditions were just beautiful. I didn't get a clear full view of the very top of the mountains, which was a shame, but still this hazy glow in combination with this prime lens that I used made for some absolutely amazing results in the end. This 24mm 1.4 is a really versatile focal length. It lets me capture wide, expansive scenes, but at the same time I can get really nice background separation, especially when you have a subject in the frame, thanks to that fast max f1.4 aperture. And I really think in hindsight it was the perfect lens for this location because it gave the whole scene this dream-like quality that actually worked better, in my opinion, with these kind of hazy conditions. And I'm just in love with this lens for dreamy travel portraits or just environmental portraits in general. I think the bokeh is really nice, and this 24mm prime excels at capturing a subject within a scene while still giving them that pop and character that you can really only get from a prime lens. And having that pop on a wide angle lens like this is a really unique cinematic look, because when you're using a zoom lens at this kind of focal range, images can sometimes look a little bit flat, but this prime has really nice rendering that makes everything feel more three-dimensional and alive. And you know me, I am a big proponent of using a zoom lens for travel. You really often don't need a prime, but I was so glad I had this lens for this trip. It just really elevated some of these shots to the next level, in my opinion. It's actually a really great lens for landscape shots in general as well, because 24mm is wide enough to capture impressive views while still maintaining a pretty natural looking field of view. But for sure, if landscape photography was my primary interest, especially when traveling, yeah, I would probably stick with a zoom just for the flexibility. But this prime really shines when you're mixing landscapes with environmental portraits like I mainly did in Iceland. But if you step this lens down to f5.6 or f8, then the sharpness is simply unbelievable. You get total edge-to-edge perfection, and that's where it really delivers for those wide landscape shots. It gives you incredible detail from corner to corner that's going to really make your images pop with contrast and detail when printed large. But even when wide open, it is really easy to see how incredibly sharp this lens is centrally. The in-focus areas are razor sharp centrally, even right from f1.4, and things just get better and better from there. This lens produces really vivid colors, nice saturated colors, and you get plenty of contrast for really punchy, pleasing images where your subject just jumps off the screen. And as I said earlier, I am a big fan of the bokeh on this lens, because another way I like to use this prime over zooms is leveraging the shallow depth of field to layer out of focus elements in the foreground of wide shots. And for me, this creates just tons of depth in your image that you just can't really achieve anywhere near as well on most zoom lenses anyway at 24mm. It is just a really fun lens for portraits in general. I've actually used it a few times in the studio as well for both photo and video, and really loved the results. It is a really fun lens for getting creative with portraits. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, and as a photographer, having a website to showcase your work is a must in my opinion, and Squarespace just makes it so easy. There's no coding or design skills needed, it's mostly just drag and drop, and now Squarespace even have amazing AI tools like Design Intelligence or Blueprint AI, which all help you create a personalized website in just a few easy steps. And of course, I love the fully customizable photo galleries. They're just perfect for showing off your portfolio. Squarespace also has fantastic e-commerce tools, making setting up an online store a breeze. And it means you can start selling in no time and even handle many different payment types seamlessly thanks to Squarespace payments. If you're ready to get started, head on over to squarespace.com/JamesReader and use code JamesReader for 10% off your first domain or website. And on the subject of video, this lens is fantastic. I love the look and character of this lens. It provides wide cinematic scenes with boatloads of subject isolation when you want it, or plenty of depth to play with. This, I think, would be a fantastic lens for travel video, of course, but also documentaries and narrative work. And despite that lack of optical stabilization, I also really like the results using this lens with just the IBIS inside the R5 Mark II for moving and tracking shots. I think it still gave really nice, smooth results. Autofocus in both photo and video is near perfect. It just locks on really confidently in video when using the R5 Mark II or the R8 or the R6 Mark II. And for photo, I simply didn't have any misses despite capturing thousands of shots throughout this trip. This is a great little hybrid lens in general, which is another reason I really like traveling with it, since it is exceptional for both photo and video purposes. And 24mm is a really versatile focal length for video. Other great features for video is, of course, the aperture ring for smooth exposure adjustments. And this lens also has minimal focus breathing. So those are two features of this lens that video pros are going to really enjoy and appreciate. So let's take a quick look at the lens itself. It is nice and small and it feels great on any of the full frame bodies that I tried it on, as it weighs just a hair over 500 grams. I found it really great to use over a long day when traveling around Iceland. I never found the lens to be front heavy or uncomfortable, even on long hikes. And it's really nice to pack for a trip too, fitting in even smaller backpacks with no problem. The build of the lens feels solid, but there is a little bit of a rattle when you do kind of shake it, which seems to be the case with the whole hybrid lens range, because I've had my 35mm 1.4 since release, and that has the rattle, and at this point I simply do not notice it anymore, to be honest. And as far as I can tell, it doesn't affect the performance at all. It's just one of those little quirks that you quickly forget about once you start shooting with this lens. And once the lens is connected to a camera and the camera's powered on, then the rattle completely stops anyway. This lens is weather sealed as well, and I really put this to the test in Iceland. And I was a bit worried because this isn't actually my lens. I just hired it for this trip and I had it out in snow, mist. I had it around waterfalls, in heavy rain, without any issues whatsoever. On the lens, we have a 67mm front filter thread, a command wheel, a focus ring, and a switch for autofocus, which are all pretty standard features on RF lenses. But we've also got that clickless aperture ring, which is pretty unique to this hybrid range of lenses. And this is great for all of the reasons I mentioned earlier about smooth exposure adjustments during video. But on certain cameras, anything I think older than the R5 Mark II, unfortunately, that aperture ring will not function in photo mode. So you can probably tell by now that I like this lens a lot, but there are some cons with this lens, and the biggest one is probably its reliance on digital corrections. When those corrections are turned off, you get a lot of vignette and distortion. And personally, I think the final results are great. Your JPEGs are going to look fine. When the corrections are on, the image looks great, and I've seen no problems in any of the video clips that I've captured either. But I totally get that some people might be unhappy with these kinds of results at this price range. Other than the rattle, the only other con that I can think of is that I wish that they included optical stabilization in this lens. I just think that would have been incredible. It would have made it just a little bit more useful to me, because then it would have been a great lens to pair with my Canon C80. So, final thoughts on the Canon RF 24mm 1.4, and I really, really love this lens. I just find it so fun to use, particularly for travel. It just seems to make me more creative and makes the process of capturing portraits, and particularly environmental portraits, so much more enjoyable. And it can be challenging locking yourself into a wide focal length like that for travel, but when it works, it's just so fun to use and the results are incredible. It's also a great lens for landscape photography or astro, and it's really, really versatile for video too. And the optics in this lens are fantastic. The final images that you get from this thing are super sharp and contrasty with fantastic colors and just wonderful rendering, all in a small, lightweight package with great build and incredible autofocus. So if you're considering adding a prime to your travel kit, this one definitely deserves some consideration in my opinion. Even as someone who usually overwhelmingly prefers to use zooms when I'm traveling for convenience, this 24mm prime has earned a permanent place in my setup in the future. I actually have been renting this lens, so I don't own it right now, but I'm definitely going to be picking one up. I just bought the 16-28 though, because that was more of an immediate need, whereas the 24mm prime is definitely more of a want, if I'm honest, but I will be adding it to my lens collection later on in the year. So that is it. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of the 24mm 1.4, and I'll also throw a couple of raw files in a Dropbox folder from this trip. So if you want to download those and check out the results for yourself, then the link for those will be in the description. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.